My name is Naika Colas, and you're watching Get to Know Me.
Hi guys, so today I have an amazing special guest, Naika Colas.
Hi everyone.
Naika is one of my best friends and I've known her for like over 10 years. Yeah, so we're going to have a great interview. We're going to learn about a lot of good stuff, so let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
So Naika Colas has over 10 years of experience in the fashion industry, beginning as a fashion student at FIT, which is the Fashion Institute of Technology, and later making her own clothing and selling them to friends and family. Now Naika is the creative director and owner of fashion brand Jacques Louis. She's the director of sustainability at a design and merchandising production company called Ovation, and a professor at the Parsons School of Design.
Yes.
So Naika, I am so happy to have you on. Yeah. And today we're going to be talking, of course, about fashion, obviously, and we're going to be talking about sustainability and how she got to where she is today and a lot of good stuff. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what is sustainability for people that don't know what it is?
I would say sustainability is a framework that encompasses people, planet, profit, and culture. I always like to add the C there. That's something I learned in grad school, but oftentimes corporations are not including culture. So the organizational culture, the culture in the office, but being conscious of different cultures within the world. Mm-hmm. So just being conscious of, like, we're not going to appropriate this design, or we're not going to go into indigenous communities in Ecuador and take certain designs and then place those designs on pieces and not pay homage to that community. And so the people portion of sustainability is all about social justice, equity, being conscious of religion, diversity, equity, inclusion, all of that. When you hear that, that's the social part of sustainability. The environment is, I would say, for fashion designers, it is all about being conscious of the materials that you're using, being conscious of your carbon footprint, and that's inclusive of the water that you're using, that's inclusive of electricity that we're using like this, and your carbon footprint even includes using the internet and your phone, because that's carbon is emitted from your cell phone and it's emitted when you're watching TV. So all of that. And then the economic development portion of sustainability is when you hear people, planet, profit. So it's not really like, oh, let's make $1 billion a year, but it's like, what are we doing with our funds? So our revenue, like, how are we taking care of our people, and how are we working towards economic development within these communities? So if we're in a community, like if we're in Haiti and we're in Pennsylville, and we have a little factory and we're creating pieces, do we care about that economy there, or are we just there for the clothing?
Yeah.
So are we paying them $2 an hour? Then it goes back into the people portion of sustainability. So it's a 4-part, there's 4 pillars of sustainability, I would say.
Well over at least 80% of people in fashion are not doing this.
They're not.
Like, at all.
And I think they only focus on, sustainable fashion designers often only focus on the environment. And then, social justice to them is something different. But the relationship that humans have with our environment, we live here. Like, we have no other home. So it's like we're here, but we're not going to take care of the space that we're in. We just want to, we love it though, it's beautiful. And then when it dies, we have someplace else to go. And that's not how it works.
Yeah.
But I think that's how a lot of people, so they're just focusing on the environment, but they're not even focusing on emissions. They're just focusing on okay, let's do natural fibers. Okay, let's do give back programs. Let's use denim, but denim, there's so much waste in that. So, yeah.
No, I completely agree with you, because I feel like this is a little like history and like sciencey, but after the Industrial Revolution, I feel like a lot of people looked at the earth as, this is me, and the earth is separate from them. So they can do no wrong to them, even if they're harming the earth, because somehow in their head they felt like it didn't really affect them. And it does.
Yeah.
Because we're dealing with the consequences
now.
Of that. Yeah. So with everything that's going on.
It's 50 degrees in New York City, and January, it's like
it's warm in New York City.
Yeah.
I'm like, I do not need to buy that for the winter because it's not even winter time. Yeah.
Oftentimes when fashion designers or people in the space of environmental justice, they say climate change. They say global warming, but global warming results to climate change. So climate change is like more of the permanent effect, and as the world the temperature heightens, it becomes more of a permanent thing where we're seeing 60 or 50 degrees in December, January. Climate change will be more of a complete thing where it's like, no, this is January. In January 2024, it's 60 degrees. 2025, it's 65. Like, that's how serious it is. And a lot of us are just like, okay, so I think that, weather is just having this, she's not sure what she wants to do. I'm like, no, she's sure.
Yeah.
She's sure.
She knows.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people today don't even believe in climate change. Mm-hmm. They think it's just the cycle that happens every million of years.
Yeah.
It gets super hot again on the earth, and they think that's just what's happening, and that's not the case.
Yeah. And I think for so the way that I guess emissions work, so humans breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide, so CO2. So when you are in the space of sustainability, or you're tracking your footprint, you're saying to yourself, we're tracking CO2 that from our equipment, from driving these cars, our capital goods, the CO2 that humans in our office are breathing out. And that's scary because it's not just about the equipment, the cars that we're driving, the electricity. It's not just about the water use. It's not. It's also about okay, so humans are here as well, because there's almost 8 billion of us on this planet, and so all of this, capitalism in the space that we're in, we're using all of this equipment and so many different types of technology, or new technologies, or emerging technologies, and then we say to ourselves, okay, so there's humans, and then there's also animals on the planet, CO2.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of waste. And when you think of CO2, they're just when you think of carbon emissions and the equivalent. So when you're calculating your carbon emissions, I'm going to go on into a rant. So I think most people don't know this, but when you're calculating carbon emissions, it's an equivalent. So not all of the emissions are carbon. So it's nitrous oxide, and then there's methane gas, and then there's smaller particulates of gas that are not as detrimental as your CO2 and your methane gas. And then there's an equivalent that you have to calculate. So the numbers are very scary. I'll just say that.
Okay. It's hard for society as a whole to change things up really quick. Once we start doing something, we don't want to change, and we're way behind in how to take care of our waste the correct way, because America and the world has been doing it wrong for so many years.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get people to jump on the bandwagon. It's hard to get companies to jump on the bandwagon, fashion companies. And we're making some strides with electric vehicles.
Yeah.
But it's still not enough. And also, what made you decide to get into sustainability? I know for me, I feel like just growing up and not being rich and having to reuse and repurpose things. But now in this climate that we're in, we're more aware of the effects that humans have on the environment. Yeah. So what made you decide to?
I think I would say that I've been in sustainability all my life. So as a child, I loved science. So I thought I would be a science teacher when I was younger. I love science, and I was also a dreamy kid. So going into high school, physics was my thing, calc was my thing. I did really well. And then so I didn't know that I was in sustainability until this became this big term, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I do. And I think it's because of, like you said, growing up, we didn't have much. And I always had this relationship with the environment. That was my happy place. So if, I was struggling at home, we didn't have much. When I'm outside and I have a quiet space, I always felt like that's my home. I'm home. Yeah. Even if I didn't have a home, I felt at home within the environment. So I would always like study the relationships between plants and animals and mammals, and like in different ecosystems. I was really excited about it. So majoring in bio and chemistry undergrad, and then I did my minor in marine bio. I loved the environment, and once I went into fashion, I realized that what was happening in fashion, it didn't feel good to me. Like I would go to fashion shows, and like the people didn't feel good. They didn't resonate with the energy that, I was always lighter or wanted to be happy. I was always for the community, and I feel like when I would go to the shows, that's not the energy that I got.
No.
And so it was just like very quick, and then being behind the scenes and seeing how rude people are, and that just wasn't my thing. And I said, if I go into sustainable fashion, I didn't even know I was there before I knew I was there. Yeah, I would say, because I started out doing like custom, and I was really conscious of like, I never threw out my scraps. I think you would remember I would have scraps everywhere.
Yes,
I collected
I remember
them
that.
before this whole sustainable fashion thing became a thing, because I didn't know where to place them. I wasn't going to discard them, so I think I was here before. Yeah.
Same with me.
Yeah.
And then in the fashion industry, people, I wouldn't say it's dark like Hollywood, but people do have like an attitude. They just want to get what they want done by any means necessary, and they're not thinking obviously about the environment or appropriating fashion or anything like that. Like I have a few designers that I personally like that don't care about the environment, and they do appropriate.
Yeah. And I feel like so many of us, is this appropriation here?
And you have to like question.
Yeah.
It's become to a point where it's like, are you upsetting this tribe from this place? Like you grew up not knowing that you were appropriating that style or that way of doing things. And now we're like much more aware. And
I think that's even my nephew's aware. He's 10. It's like, no, Tati, we can't do that. And I'm like, I feel like there's an awakening happening, and everyone's a part of it. Even if they don't want to be a part of it, they're here.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. What designer do you love that you would give a sustainability makeover to? Like a designer house?
Oh, there's a designer that I just said. Thierry Mugler.
I was just talking about him earlier today. I love his work.
I went to the exhibit, and I'm like,
R.I.P.
Yes.
To Mugler.
Yeah. I would say Chanel before, but I went to the exhibit, and I was just like blown away. It's just like everywhere. Mugler was everywhere, and I just feel like I was consciously in my head like, I can do this in this type of material. This would look good in lyocell if you line it, and like the structuring of the pieces. And so I would definitely give a makeover to that brand. That would be fun. That would be fun because it would be so hard. Yeah, like the materials, the leathers that they're using. But that would be fun.
I think a lot of brands look at sustainability as just like a fad that might eventually blow over. So what ways do you think a brand can be sustainable and make it stick?
Well, they have no choice.
Okay, and you have it.
Surprise!
You don't have a choice.
I think just being conscious of what rules and regulations for corporations here in the U.S. I know that corporations or brands will not have, after like 2023, 24, going into 2025, they won't have a choice. So I think they have to, brands should be, instead of saying, we are sustainable and using that term, I think maybe using eco-conscious and just like really feeling that you are doing something for the planet and that you really feel connected. And if you don't have to force yourself to be in that space, because consumers like us, we can tell when it's not real. So we're like, okay, they're just doing this for this. I would say a brand like Mara Hoffman, I really love what she does with the brand, what she stands for, and I think that there's so many other brands that could look into what she's doing. I wouldn't even say a Stella McCartney. That brand is like, they do large batches, and but they are sustainable. But I would say look into just really not feeling like you have to compete or you have to use certain terms, or start at the fabric. I would say start at the fabric. Start at producing domestically, even if it's a larger batches. Then being conscious of how much the wages that you're paying employees, what resources are you providing them. Like there's so many different steps, but I would say if you start at the fabric in the process and you say, okay, I'm not going to do 30 pieces, I'm going to do 20. And then you say, I'm going to do 10. And then you're conscious of your patterns, because I know another thing about sustainability is like when you're a fashion designer, you have patterns for the fall, winter, right? You can also alter those patterns to fit your spring, summer. It's very easy. You just have them you can do this with your pattern maker. Say, I want the arms off, I want to add eyelets to the back, and I feel like more designers, I see some designers that are already doing it.
That's awesome.
And they're not sustainable,
yeah.
But they're doing it because it's cut cost. And I see designers recycle every season. I won't say the designers that I see doing it, but that's also another way, right?
Yes, so. I agree. And it kind of reset the fashion industry, because I feel like it's just mass produced so many items and make fashion more exclusive again. Yeah. Because it's kind of like a capsule piece, because you're trying to be sustainable and you're repurposing designs and things you already have.
That's why I only do capsules. And I think with capsule pieces for organizations, they have the opportunity to produce more capsules within a year. But they have less pieces. And so I think for the bigger corporations, it's harder for them to, their ROI or return on their investment, it's they want to increase yearly, right? So they're thinking to themselves like, okay, so if we go from 30 pieces for our spring, summer to 10 pieces, how are we going to make more? I guess for them it would be accessories or different colors or like something, but for them they want to recuperate the funds, and I understand completely, but 30 pieces, I don't think that's necessary at all.
Yes, I agree. And then sometimes you see on the runway like 30 models with 30 different looks, and it's like that's not necessary for one season. Like
and
you could do 15. It used to be, I feel like 15 was like the top max.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
And now it's like so many pieces on the runway, and that's like, it's overwhelming for us, the consumer, when we see it.
Yes.
It's overwhelming when I'm online shopping. I feel like if there's really 10 great, amazing pieces, and if you are a couture designer, then that's even your return on your investment is like, you're just making so much, you know? And your pieces are already kind of one of a kind. So I think there's so many loopholes and so many ways that brands could strategize to do capsule collections and to be conscious of the materials. And dead stock, I would say to go the dead stock route. I would say to do that.
The last time I interviewed her, I asked her about what she thought about digital fashion. In 2020, 2021, it kind of got a little buzz. And I actually believe now that if fashion brands focused on their actual tangible clothing line and cut costs that way, and fabric, and use dead fabric, that could be more sustainable than digital clothing, because you're using essentially electricity for things online and stuff like that, and that's pollution. Yeah. You use coal for electricity. Yeah. So
I think if they were to do like 10 pieces, and then maybe 10 pieces would be all digital pieces, that would work, right? Because the price point would be a little bit lower, much lower than a tangible piece or physical piece, and they're able to recuperate the cost. I think that would be great. I would say for when you think about sewing a dress, that carbon footprint as opposed to like using the computer is higher, right? Because sewing a dress in a what is it? Maybe they're using a Juki, that's an industrial machine, and it's so much electricity. So I get like if they were to do both, but I feel like doing one and not the other, I'm not wasting my time getting someone to place this piece on me so I can post it on Instagram. That's not what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But there's, influencers, and there's Gen Z. They're really big on digital fashion now. So I think that would be, it's great to tap in, but there's so much material here. It's like, why would we not use this material that's already here as opposed to creating only digital fashion?
And I think digital fashion can become very big once we figure out how to wear digital fashion without a camera.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a holograph of clothing that you can wear out. But that's like far in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're on the way. Because even, like, I was trying to figure out some digital pieces that I could wear for social media. But you have to take a picture of yourself. You can't move. It's not like a video. So it's kind of like...
Yeah, what's the point?
What's the point?
That's how I feel. I'm not like... No. I'm not, no.
Just for a picture.
I have to pose a certain way. No.
Yeah.
On that.
So if you could work with one fashion designer starting tomorrow, sustainable or not, who would you work with?
That's a really hard question. I
have a few in my head that I would work with.
A fashion designer.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to work with someone that is very, like, extremely innovative. Virgil Abloh is no longer with us.
Yes.
But trying to think of a designer that I would work with that is still here. It's Marc Jacobs is amazing.
Yes.
I feel like the work that Marc Jacobs has done is amazing.
I love Marc Jacobs.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just thinking of, like, it's so weird because when I think of, like, Parsons alum, and I'm not going to be a snob because I teach there, versus FIT alum, I think what the Parsons alum, like a Marc Jacobs, has is, I just love the style and the theory behind the work. I love the brand The Row. I love to see, that's not a brand that I would say tomorrow. I would quit my job tomorrow for this. No, not the brand. But I would say I love how they incorporate fashion and art. But I would say a Marc Jacobs. I would, or what's the other brand that has the same Jacques Mus? Yes.
Yes.
I would. That's.
Yes. I really like that brand.
Yeah.
It's a trendy brand. It's a young brand.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that.
Yeah.
And The Row is a young brand too.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised. No, I'm not surprised. I'm actually impressed with Mary-Kate and Ashley. They're so hush-hush that I really don't know how their behind the scenes is with The Row.
Yeah.
But I would like to know if they are doing anything sustainable.
No.
No. Oh,
well,
no.
From what my students did a project with The Row, and we were, like, trying to tap into a different demographic because their demographic is much like, it's millennials, and then it's not really Gen Z. So we were trying to see how the students can go about tapping into a different demographic, like using TikTok, and but I haven't heard of anything sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, H&M is sustainable, so I mean, Zara is sustainable. So
is it?
They're not.
Yeah,
but it's like I feel like everyone's
sustainable.
Everyone's sustainable. No one's really doing the work. So
tell me a little bit about how the viewers and ourselves can be sustainable with the things that we already own.
I would say to always keep your pieces. Like, the worst thing you can do is throw out your clothes. The worst thing you can do. One, it's leaving your home. It goes into landfill. Will sit there. It took so many emissions just to create this one shirt, gallons of water, bleach. They're sewing it, and then you're placing it in a landfill, and now it's just going to sit there and emit more emissions. I would say that's the worst thing. So I would say to reuse things, to look into tailors instead of asking me. I'm kidding. No, my friends do this often.
I want to ask her so much.
No, you don't ever ask me. It makes me laugh. Why?
Because I don't
My
know.
other
Like,
friends,
not
they will, my friends in Long Island, can you sew these, something to this? And I'm like, wow, you live like an hour away. So I would say get in touch with tailors for pieces that you already have. So if you're losing weight, have tailors tailor your pieces so that they fit you. If they're long, have them shorten. I have shortened so many of my jeans. And if they are like wide leg, you can make them skinny leg by going to a tailor. I do it all the time. You can have your pants that are wide leg and you can add an elastic so then it's like a wide but it cinches at the ankle. I do it all the time. I use a lot of shirts for rags here. I used to have one of these pillows, these 4 pillows. Let me show y'all. Just in case you have one of these. I used to have one of those, and I would stuff it instead of with cotton or like a pillow. I would stuff it with old pieces of clothing.
I think that's excellent advice.
Yeah, so I would do that. Even our shoes, I would say, we can do things like change the colors of our shoes or Poshmark. I do Posh a lot of my pieces. It takes forever. Poshmark, your algorithms are not the best.
Poshmark.
But I do Posh them, and I would say that would be the best. Or give them away to a homeless shelter, or a women's shelter. I have like a bag right there. You see all those bras?
I do, yes.
That's going to go to a shelter. So I would say those are the best ways to give away.
I'm a very slow consumer, so I definitely do the things that you say, but Poshmark definitely. And I think because we're in such a nostalgic 90s era in fashion, it kind of helps people repurpose their clothing, be more mindful about their style and not just doing trends, because you have to search. If you don't already have clothes from the early 2000s or the 90s, you have to search for those.
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful. And a lot of times you get it off of Poshmark, or your mom owns it, or your older sister.
Yeah.
So I find all of those valid.
When we were younger, my mom was like really big into fashion. So, and the Haitian fashion is like very clean cuts, all these poppy colors. And so my sister could fit my mom's pieces. And so she would wear like her shorts that were like high-waisted trouser shorts, but they looked really nice. And she would just repurpose my mom's pieces or like change them up and dye them.
And everyone wants to be like the it mom when they get older. I feel like today, like back in the day, you're like, I don't want to wear my mom's clothes. But when you get older, you're like, oh, I want my daughter to have this piece.
Yeah.
And then at least for me, I think like, oh, my daughter or my son is like, oh, I'm just going to go into my mom's wardrobe and have like the dopest pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like the bags, our mothers have the best bags, they have the best shoes. I want to be that mom.
Yes. I want to be the mom with the best wardrobe, and my daughter or son brings their friends over and like, do you want to go in my mom's closet and like try on her clothes?
Like, this is from 2020, girl. I'm like, it's like crazy.
Exactly, yes.
She had this since 2017. Yeah.
And this is super vintage from 2005.
Oh my God.
Like low rise. Like,
it's already vintage. It's 15 years plus. It's already
vintage. It's vintage, yeah. Antique at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, that'll be the mom that I want to be, you know, and then incorporate that into like, instill that in my kids, like be conscious and I think it's so hard for brands to be really truly sustainable if they are not at the core conscious. I think that's why Mara Hoffman does it so well. There's so many brands that are actually, they're just the CEOs, the founders, the creative directors are conscious. And we have a great relationship with the environment, and that's why it always works.
I also think that it's, unless you get it, you just want to hop on the bandwagon, but you don't truly have the sustainability and eco-friendly in your heart.
Yeah.
So I think having them take some kind of educational course, or having designers take an optional sustainability class, just so they could truly understand. A lot of designers are like Gen X and boomers, and as much as they're like on the cutting edge of fashion, they're still set in their Gen X and boomer ways in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I think awareness is key.
And I think for designers who if you don't find it in your heart to be that consciousness, or you don't want to change the materials that you're using, you can always purchase. So there's like different. You can purchase credits so that you can emit your carbon footprint, or you can minimize your carbon footprint. So there's like different technologies that will go out into the atmosphere, and then they'll collect CO2, and you can pay a company to do that. So now you're maybe if your carbon footprint for the year is like 1,000 tons, right? You can say, okay, we're going to purchase 500 tons worth of the CO2, so we're going to be not fully net negative, but you're kind of balanced. Or you can purchase 1,000 tons, right? So then this technology, you're working with this organization. There's this organization called Climate Vault, and they actually will connect you with nonprofit organizations that have access to this type of technology, and so you can be net zero, right? So then you're saying to yourself, oh, we don't have any emissions because we purchased for 1,000. And that's what brands can do. So if you don't see yourself being fully eco-friendly or using eco-friendly materials or processes, and you still want to have your processes done overseas, I think just actually doing the work, now making that profit, that money talk, and purchasing those credits so that you can be part of the solution, I think that's also another option.
How can the average person learn more about things like this, because they don't see it in the forefront of the media today?
I would say it's hard because I think if they do like your COP27, or like if they're part of these different conferences, they'll be more conscious of it. But I would say for me, like even working for the Bureau of Recycling and Sustainability before, having a background in science, and now the work that I do, it's completely like, what? This is different. Mm-hmm. So now you're going into a space that most people in the space of sustainable fashion, are not conscious of it, right? So like I have friends that are like influencers, and we can't talk about emissions the same because they don't understand it. And I think they won't, because unless they are going to different conferences and they are looking at all day at work, I'm watching videos, looking at different types of technology, going into like more of like science based, or they can go on to SBTI, that's science based. There's other frameworks like your SASB, which is more for accounting. I would say consumers would look at a company CSR report. That's their corporate social responsibility report. You can go into their 10K report to see how they're using their revenue, the finances of the company, see how much they spend on marketing, how much did they spend on electricity, and then you become more conscious of it. But first thing I would say to look at their CSR report. There's also the GRI that you can look into that and look at different materiality indexes for corporations, and if they're publicly traded, which means you can find them on the stock market, you can find their CSR report, you can find their 10K report, and so you're able to go in to see exactly what they're doing. And I like to do a lot of research on organizations, and that's like spending time, you're seeing what's in the news, what's on the dark web about Nike. I love, there's so many brands I love.
Dark web is a bit scary.
Yeah, it's very scary. And then you're reading comments. And also what I do is like case studies. So I would go on HBR, Harvard Business Review, and I would go on there and look at different case studies for brands and just read up on what these organizations are doing. Lastly, look at scientific publications. I do that often. I'm just reading. You see, I'm completely reading. I see CO2, I see different emissions, and you're seeing different numbers. And I think that's what, outside of having a science background, I think if you go into that space, but you have to have a love for science if you want to go into emissions. And yeah.
Essentially, it's similar to the stock market. Like if you're going into the stock market, it's really important to look at the quarterly earnings, the yearly reports, stuff like that. So it would be the same thing.
Yeah, so you're looking at all of this, right? You're seeing how companies using their money or their revenue, and how are they giving back to the community. And then you'll see so many different you'll see how they're, when it comes to ethics, how they're treating their employees, and then that's a light bulb. I shouldn't be working with this brand, or I shouldn't be using this brand. I shouldn't purchase or be their consumer, their target.
It's hard too. It's hard when you become enlightened. I guess we could use the word enlightened, because you kind of are in like almost like landlocked. It's like you know that you shouldn't be working for this brand or using this company, but at the same time, they almost have a monopoly over certain things. And some brands are under that big brand and you don't even know it. I know, like Amazon, for example, there's a lot of lawsuits against them and how they treat their workers and the stuff that's happening in like India and China and clothing and all that stuff. But at the same time, it's like, it's the easiest thing to order. Like, oh, I need new underwear. You don't want to go anywhere, you just order from Amazon. And last question I have, what is a fabric that if you only had to use one fabric for a whole collection, what fabric would you use?
Tencel.
YSL. Yes, I was gonna say that.
I would say, that's the brand, right? So I can use that brand. They do no patent, YSL and Modal and all those other super eco-friendly fibers or materials. I would only use that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Naika. Give me a hug.
Yes.
Yay. I hope you guys enjoyed this video podcast today, and we might be doing a part 2 because we ordered some food, so it might be like a little charades kind of game with fashion and stuff, so we'll see. But thank you so much, and we hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. If you want to see more, subscribe to my channel, Ashanistafy Yourself, and you can find her Instagram, which is
The Art of Style. So it's the ARTE of Style at Instagram, and you can find all my information there. And the brand is Jacques Louis C at Instagram. So if you go on my page, you'll find all of that, and you can find me on LinkedIn, Naika Colas on LinkedIn, and we can connect and you can pick my brain. So
bye guys.
Bye.
Okay, one thing I want you to do.
Okay.
I'm gonna zoom in on you. I want you to say, my name is Naika Colas, and you are watching Get to Know Me.
Okay.
And you're watching Get to Know Me.
Okay.
All right, ready?